For this video, I just want to show you how the tracing paper portion works a little bit more easily with a reflection transformation, because remember, the reflection is the one where you can see the shape, but it has been flipped. So you can tell that this and this are the same shape, but they've been flipped. So I've already gone ahead and traced my actual shape onto my tracing paper. So now what I'm going to do is trace my design, which again, sticking with the bird theme apparently, I saw an eagle when I looked at this one. So I'm going to go ahead and just trace that eye. I kept the design a little more simple, just to be able to focus more on the actual process than on the product. So as usual, it is important that you trace carefully and neatly. So now I could have put something else down here. I still could. And absolutely, you can change up your design at any point. But I do want to go ahead and show you now, because this is a flipped version of that same shape. I can literally take my tracing paper and lay it down as if I were going to be putting the design on the back of that tracing paper. But this time, when I go to put the design on the back of that tracing paper, I can do it directly onto my pattern, which is going to save you guys a little bit of time. Because basically each time we trace it in reverse, what we are doing is adding more graphite to either side, so that then the next time we draw the other side, it's going to be easier because there's more graphite to transfer to our design. So now I've got the bird here, I've got the bird here. I can just flip my page once again. Remember, it was this direction. And then I can just flip it again. Sorry. And go in the next direction. And I can just keep doing that over and over again until I have filled up my entire design with the eagle. Now, once again, even on a reflection transformation, if you want to change it up and not do an eagle on all of them, that's perfectly fine. I want you guys to be creative. I want you to think about how you can finish these out in a way that is interesting, helps you stay engaged and have fun with what you are doing, but does still make a successful overall product. So I'm just going to continue flipping this around so you guys can see a little bit of both sides being used. Keep in mind, there are going to be times where you are going to have to darken your lines after tracing, simply because when we use tracing paper, it's not meant to be a super dark tracing. It's supposed to be pretty light, because then the idea is that we are adding color and detail inside of that design and around with that design. Oops, that's not the correct direction. So one thing, once again, to pay attention to up here, for instance, you'll see that most of the design is not on the page, but there is enough of the design that I'm going to draw that in there and just let the rest of it go off the page. Same thing over here. It does not all fit onto my page. But if we are using the design on every single tessellated shape, then we need to still draw the little bit that does fit onto the page. I keep doing that, don't I? So down here, we just mostly have the eye of the eagle. Gonna check this one. And you can see that this one got just a little bit off in terms of the shape. So what I'm going to do is zoom in here just to show you. So it got a little bit off from my original stencil. So what I'm going to do is just kind of center the blue line within that original line and then just draw what fits within that space. So some of your shapes might be just a little bit off. That's okay. Obviously, we are trying to be as careful as we can and keep it as accurate as possible. But there are going to be times where it just doesn't work out that way. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. Because once again, I've just lined it up here, but this is the only part that we're going to see on that particular piece. So I'm just going to draw what I see. So let's see, I've checked this one. So I gotta check this one next. And on this one, I only see the very outer corner right here of the eye. So even though it's just one little piece, I'm going to draw that in there. And then this one, we're going to see most of the beak. And you got another spot here where I got a little bit off of my original pattern. But we're just going to draw the part of the beak that we see anyway. And then we'll line it up here and check on this side. We're going to see just a smidge of the corner of the eye. If you move on up. So then I'm just going to go through and one last time just kind of check through everything. So this has just a smidge here of the beak. This is where it becomes a little challenging to me. Simply because I don't see all of what I'm doing. So what I want to do is find a spot that is similar. So here I can tell that this is the way that the eagle goes because of the repeating up here. So I know that I'm supposed to have some of the eye in this spot. Part of the beak. So then we've done that. Checking right up here because this should be similar to how this one is. So I should see just a little bit of the eye in that upper corner. So then I'm going to check this one because it should be similar to this one here. So I'm going to line it up. I see just a little bit of the beak here and then a smidge of the eye as well. And then it looks like I've gotten everything in there. So then my next step would be to go over any of my pencil lines that I need to make darker so that they're a little more visible. Because remember, until I know whether or not I want to outline anything or add any more detail, I'm not going to actually use a pen And in fact, I may never use a pen because the design doesn't necessarily always need to be outlined with a pen. So right now I'm just going through and making sure that my pattern is visible throughout. Darkening any areas that look like they're a little bit too light to see well. And some people are very systematic about this part. You can tell that I kind of just jump around a little bit until it's all covered up. There's not really a right or a wrong. There's nothing that said you have to be systematic or that you can't be. A big part of this project, and any project that we do in here, is going to be figuring out what works best for you, because it may not be the same as what works best for me or for the person sitting next to you. So now that example has my entire pattern on it. It's got my design within each of the shapes. Remember, I have used my tracing paper. And since it is a reflection transformation, I can use both sides of the tracing paper. Whereas on my other example, my rotation example, I'm going to be using one side, which basically means that I'm going to probably have to reapply graphite as I go along, unless I want to have multiple tracings to be working from. And remember, you can use more than one pattern. You can use more than one design. So I could use the bird and I could use the fish, both on this example. That's one of the things that I feel like I cannot stress enough, is that I want you guys to design your tessellations the way that you want them to look. That's why I'm letting you guys pick between the three types. You can pick between the rotation transformation, the slide translation transformation, or the reflection. And remember, all of the videos that are on Google Classrooms will help you learn a little bit more about each type and how to create the stencils for each type. But I do want to make sure that I provide you with as many examples and demonstrations as possible so that you feel comfortable and confident being creative with these projects.